Hey Steve, this is the other shakuras plateau game that you sent me, and I'd just like to point out that I fast forwarded to when your 2-2 finished at 15 minutes, and I looked at the army spending, and it was 3,000, and again 9,000 is your goal. So I would say go into Yabbit or go into very easy AI computer, play by yourself, not against a real opponent, and try to hit that army size benchmark when 2-2 finishes. Because if you can't have a big army right when 2-2 finishes, this build is never going to work. So I'll watch this game, but it's the same problem as the last game. So I doubt we'll learn anything new. It does look like you forced $650, actually $700 worth of defensive reaction out of the Zerg with your push, while losing only $225 worth of dudes. So your early pressure did really good. You could even go home right now, and it would actually be probably better. Once he's built the lings in the spine, there's really no point in fighting them. But, I don't know, how would you know whether he's built them or not, right? And he cancels the spine because now he knows your Marines are dead, so he's not as worried. That's the thing. It's always much scarier to see an army and then have it walk away but not go home. And then, like, you know it's coming, so you're building all these lings and you're making all these spines. But once the army is dead, you're not scared anymore. So it's better to scare them and go home than it is to... It's just like with Reapers. Very consistently, you come in with 3 Reapers, you kill 6 workers, and you say, well, that's a good trade. I got I got $300, I spent $300, it all worked out. I'd rather lose Reapers than lose workers, so he's behind now, everything is great. But in reality, it's better to come in with 3 Reapers, kill 3 workers, and get away with all 3 Reapers, because now your opponent knows there's 3 Reapers out there. And he's got to constantly leave units behind in his main. He might even get concussive shells just in order to deal with the Reapers. All sorts of, it's very stressful in his brain to know that there's 3 Reapers that are going to come into his main at any point. So even, it's always better to force a reaction and then leave without taking any damage than it is to come in and lose your whole army. That said, we're going to look at you rather than him and say, what have you done by 8 minutes? 28 workers, you're behind by 2. Let's look at 6 minutes. 22 workers, you're behind by 2. So very consistent problem with you, me, Nick, anyone that I've ever seen do this build is that it's so easy to fall behind on workers. Get supply blocked when you build the command center, or just forget to produce workers while you're pushing out with these Marines. This early aggression, it does psychological and infrastructural damage to the Zerg to force him to produce some army to defend against it, but don't underestimate the amount of damage it does to yourself. So really practice and work on this, especially if you open the same way every game. Your opening should be crisp, and it should be beautiful, and it should be perfect, and you should never be 2 workers behind at 6 minutes. Just like in the last game, you got these engineering bays really shortly after you got gas, so you don't actually have enough gas oh, you do have enough gas to start the upgrades this time. Good, so you delayed them a little bit. I would say it's actually probably a good idea. Actually, probably. I don't like the way I talk, but I can't help it. I was born this way. No, I wasn't. I was educated this way. I think it's probably better to get a 3rd Rax before you get these, and to get a Tech Lab before you get these, and for your first 100 gas to go into combat shields. Your second 100 gas goes into +1. Your third 100 gas goes into +1 armor. Because, excuse me, it takes 5 minutes of Tech Lab researching to get everything you want, and it takes 6 minutes of engineering bay research to get everything you want. But combat shields is a much bigger contribution to the sexiness of your Marines than +1 and +1 are. Also, like especially against roaches, +1 armor really doesn't do a single thing, but combat shields makes you 40% more effective against roaches. It's like a ridiculous thing, and same with stim. Maybe it's 25% more effective. Anyway, point is, it's good. It's important. You should get it first. That's not really that big of a deal. The main thing is to have 3 racks, because we're going to look at your army spending at 10 minutes, and we're going to say, if you'd come with a 10-minute Baneling bust, or even just a 10-minute roach push, say... one thing I've done against Nick when I ZVT'd against him is a 10-minute roach push, and if you get a bunch of economy and then a bunch of roaches, at 10 minutes you can have about $5,000 worth of roaches. Now imagine if you had $950 plus 3 bunkers, and he had $5,000 of roaches. That would be bad, right? It seems like that would be bad. Also, it only takes, what, probably like 10 banelings to bust your entire wall, and then it would be mass ling against 5 marines, 6 marines, and you would lose that way too. So basically, I know you want to get this infrastructure up as quick as possible, but it's important to have enough troops to live. I don't know. Maybe it's not. How often do you lose to that stuff? If you ever lose to that stuff, then it's important. If you never lose to that stuff, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Just don't worry about it. But another thing to think about is when mutas come out, you want to have 10 Marines here and 10 Marines there. That means you want to have 20 Marines by 10 minutes. And you only have 17 Marines at 11 minutes. I don't know. It's almost good enough. Whatever. It was more of a significant problem last game than this game. I guess you've kind of kept up more on your marine production here, but still, very small army. Another thing to note is, okay, imagine that I give you 10,000 minerals to spend on marines and racks. If you get 5 racks immediately at 5 minutes into the game, and then you constantly produce out of them, then by 15 minutes you'll have a certain amount of marines, say 100. But if you get 1 racks or 2 racks and you don't produce out of them for the first 11 minutes, and then you try to get as many marines as you can by the 15-minute mark, starting at the 11-minute mark, you'd have to throw down like 25 racks just to spend the same amount of money on marines, and 25 racks eats minerals out of your marine count as well. So there's just no possible way to have a large marine army if you don't start producing marines early and constantly produce marines. I hope that makes sense. Dinner's ready? Okay, bye. Yes, I'll come get some later. Sorry. Yeah. So more racks earlier and constant marine production. Delay everything in order to get that done. Realize that until 2-2 is done and stim and combat shields, you don't really need to be out on the map. It takes 5 minutes to get this, 6 minutes to get this, and 1 minute for a factory, 1 minute for both starports, and then 45 seconds for a round of medevacs. So if your goal is to push out with 6 medevacs from 2 starports, you don't have to start your factory until, let's see, 1, 2, 3.5 minutes before you're about to push out. So 12.5 minutes. You can delay the starport all the way to 12.5 minutes without delaying your push. Again, 6 minutes for upgrades. That means you can start your engineering, or you can finish your engineering bays at 9 minutes. That means start them at 8 minutes and 30 seconds without delaying your push. That would give you a heck of a lot more marines, wouldn't it? Because instead of spending this money on engineering bays at like some ridiculously early time, like again, you want to be pushing the second 2-2 is done. But if 2-2 finishes at a time when you have 0 marines, what was the point in getting it that quick? You don't have any marines. So yeah, delay everything to the last possible moment except for marines, and then you'll have a better ability to survive early attacks, and you won't be required to build as many racks to get the marines that you want, and you'll still have all the exact same things when it's time to push. This takes 5 minutes plus 35 seconds to build, so you need to start it by... If you started it at 9 minutes, everything would be done when it's time to push. You started at 11. There's no possible way you're going to get stim and combat shields before you push, right? Let's see. Wait, maybe my addition is wrong. 11 plus 3 is 14, plus 2 is 16. Yeah, it'll be a minute late. Anyway. So again, if you're going to use the same build over and over and over and over against Zerg, it's really important to time out when you want everything so that you can push everything back as late as possible so that you can have as many marines as possible. The income, you're doing great, I think. Let me look at 10 minutes. We're looking for 44, if not more. And you've got 42. So you're 2 behind at all 3 benchmarks, which is great. That means you didn't fall any further behind than where you were to start with. That means you've kept up constant SCV production, you've kept up depots, you've been doing great at everything. Good work. This all reflects on how much money you can pull out of the ground. This command center, again, you're starting it at 11:30. You can't land this safely until you push out, and you can't push out until 2-2 is done. So command center takes 100 seconds. That's a minute and a half. This upgrade takes 3 minutes. So start this upgrade, and when it's halfway done, start your command center. Get it? Building it this early is just reducing your marine count. Everything you do that spends money on stuff that you can't use yet is reducing your marine count. These starports are actually, this is an appropriate time to build those starports. I'm okay with it. But in order to get 6 medevacs by 15 minutes, it looks like 3 rounds of... yeah, if you don't add add-ons and you just make 6 medevacs, you'll have them out in time, so that's good. Again, this build, Marines with lots of upgrades, extremely strong in the time period of about 15 minutes to about 18 minutes. You got 3 minutes to really make a dent in your opponent. And if you don't really do damage within those 3 minutes, the whole game is like in the trash. And I do a lot of builds like this that take advantage of a specific timing when this build is extremely powerful. And if you don't like that playstyle, don't make mass Marines with upgrades. Because it's a style that's really dependent on timing, on having a big army at a certain time and pushing with it. So you notice how your supply is at 123. It's like ridiculously low. We're going to get all the way down to 15 minutes when 2-2 is done, and your 2-2 finishes right on time, and that's great. Your stim is done in time, but you don't have combat shields, and that's terrible. You're going to start combat shields down now, but it's not going to be done in time. And so right when 2-2 finishes, what's your unit count? You're shooting for 90 Marines and 8 medevacs. You have 57 Marines and no medevacs. You don't have turrets. Oh, you have 1 turret here and 1 turret. You don't have a turret here, but I guess that's because all your Marines are standing here. But as soon as you push out, there's not going to be anything defending these SCVs. So you should have 72 workers. You have 69. That's perfect. You should have 90 Marines. You have 57. That's terrible. And you should have 8 medevacs, and you have 0, and that's terrible. Look, you have enough gas for the 8 medevacs, so you got exactly the right amount of money. Right? You have enough gas to have gotten everything you needed. You just didn't make them. And let's look at whether or not you actually had enough money to get 90 Marines, right? You've got 57. That means you need 33 more. So this is 8. And yeah, your supply blocked. Um, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 extra Marines. And look, I'm surprised. It seems like you wouldn't have had enough money. I guess this is a lot of turrets. One of the main reasons that we're going mass Marine is to make us almost completely immune to mutas. And so getting this many turrets is kind of wrong. You want 1 in each mineral line, and then 1 right here protecting all of your reactor cores. And then you just want to keep like 5 Marines in your base, and then push them out. And when you push out, pull the guys out of your base, pull everything out of your base. If he comes with mutas right when you're making your big push, that just means you're going to win that fight. That's great. Infestor Ling is like really hard to play against with pure Marine, especially when your Marine count gets high. But he doesn't have any mutas, and you've spent 18 Marines worth of cash on turrets that you didn't really need. I guess you did need that one. So this is 6, so that's 12. So it seems like your income is slightly less. The amount of money you got is slightly lower than what I would have expected. Why do you think that is? Why are you not fully saturated here? Do you have extra workers that are hiding somewhere or something? Oh, there's 2 more turrets up here as well. Okay. So anyway, again, I recommend trying against the very easy AI or on Yabbit to get a $9,000 army of 90 Marines, 8 medevacs, 72 workers, 3 command centers. No planetary fortress morphed yet. You want to morph as you push out. Stim combat shields in 2-2, and see if you can do that, man. And if you can, you'll be fine. I have, against Infestor Ling, I do kind of recommend Blue Flame Hellions and Banshees. But even though I recommend Blue Flame Hellions and Banshees to someone who's in Masters League, I don't know if I recommend it to you, because Hellions and Banshees are both units that take additional micro on top of spreading your Marines, but neither of them is as important as spreading your Marines. So you have to have so much free time after you've spread your Marines that you can also use your Hellions and Banshees. And I don't think that you'll ever have that much time. You know, like it's going to take all of the effort you have just to keep up on your macro while also spreading your Marines. I'm really surprised at the low income, and that you mined out patches in your main before the 15-minute mark. You mined out 2 patches in your main. You must have been dropping mules on the exact same patches all game. Don't do that. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad. And look how undersaturated your natural is. You know what? I bet this all comes down to not transferring workers. Let's see. Let's see, baby. Let's see. This mule gets dropped here. That mule gets dropped there. These are the 2 patches that got mined out. So you did transfer workers, okay. You poor 2 patches, man. And you dropped it on this patch again. You dropped it on this patch again. You should never be dropping mules in your main once your natural is up. That just makes no sense whatsoever, because your main had 6 minutes while your natural was building that it wasn't mining at all. What you want... Okay, realize you're going to put 3 workers on these 2 geysers. So what you want to do is when you transfer workers, count the number of workers you have total, not including the guys on gas, and then take half of it. So like pretend you had 16, you would just want 8. Sorry. Okay. So you count them, you say I have 16, and so you say I want to move 8 of them down there, but then I also want to move 6 more for gas. So it looks like like this. Boom. And I know that takes a long time. That's a pain in the butt, and you might not be able to realistically do that. So instead, what you might want to do is do what you normally do, just grab some workers and transfer them. But every once in a while, check how many you have in both places, and you have exactly the same number in both places. So you must have been doing that pretty well. I think it really just all comes down to the mule. I don't know what to tell you, buddy. Don't drop mules in your main, and definitely try to vary the mineral patches you drop mules on, because if you mine out 2 patches in your main at 14 minutes, that's just such a big deal. Your income is gonna just shrink for no good reason. Yeah, and again, you have more workers at your main than your natural for a little while. I think what's happening is that you're building a bunch of buildings and then sending them back to your main or something. I don't know why, but you were short. Let's see. I think it was. You were short 30 Marines, and we explained 32 of them. Wait, what? With turrets? No, 6, 7, 8 turrets. Turrets in a command center was 26 of them. So then there's an additional like 8 Marines that we can't decide why they're missing, and I think just these missing mineral patches must be the answer. Also the oversaturation in your main and undersaturation at your natural. Although this natural is fully it's fully saturated right now. So there was only like a 2-minute period when it wasn't fully saturated when it could have been. So I think your distribution of workers was okay. I think you did okay in that regard. It was just you shouldn't be dropping mules in your main. Stop that. So yeah, now the two patches are gone, and you're gonna transfer some workers over to your third. And I do support the idea of never mind. I thought you were distance mining. I was gonna say distance mining as you land the command center. I think that's okay. It's not a big deal. So now we have the first engagement, and like I said, it's 16 minutes in. You should have maybe 100 Marines by now, because we're a minute past the 90 Marine deadline, and you only have 58, and you only have 1 Banshee, and you have no medevacs, okay? Medevacs are the counter to infestors, and you have none, alright? Banshees and medevacs are what deals with infestors, and Blue Flame Hellions and Marines are what deals with Lings. So what you want is for him to waste 4 fungals killing this Banshee, because the Banshee costs 240 bucks and you can kill it in 4 fungals. If he does 3 fungals, then you repair it. Oh my god, that's even cooler, because now it's going to take 7 fungals just to kill the Banshee. The average infestor in a high-paced, suicidal aggression, constant fighting kind of game is going to get 1 fungal off. Because there's going to be a lot of infestors that die without getting any fungals off, and you know, most of the time, if I'm constantly attacking you and you're spending money on stuff, you have to use that stuff as soon as it pops out, or else you're going to lose hatcheries. So to say a Banshee, which costs 250, takes 4 fungals to kill, that means it takes 2 infestors to kill a Banshee. And a Banshee costs 250 as well, so that means they're twice as effective against Banshees against fungal growth as fungal growth is against them. So Banshees are great in very small numbers against infestors. So constantly producing 1 Banshee at a time, very good move against infestor play. Blue Flame Hellions, totally crucial in this matchup. If you scout more than like 5 infestors, he's not getting mutas anytime soon. So I would fully support throwing down a second factory, getting Blue Flame, and making 3 Hellions at a time, and even getting a +1 vehicle weapon upgrade. Again, I'm saying this out loud because that's what I would do, but I don't necessarily suggest that you do it, because Hellions, they die if you don't micro them, and you're probably not going to micro them, so totally ignore that. So yeah, at this point, not only has he spent $6,300 more than you, he also has an additional $5,000 in the bank. So you're kind of screwed in this game. This game is kind of over. There's another long amount of time left, but you know, you're in such a terrible position right now that you're not going to be able to be ahead before he catches up on his upgrades and has late tier stuff. Yeah, he already has Ultralisks, he already has 2-2, tier 2-2. So right now you're kind of doomed. Again, the strength of this build is that from 15 minutes to 18 minutes, Zergs will tend to have a $7,000 army. So if you come out with a $9,000 army against his $7,000 army and you trade well by spreading pretty good, you can take a small lead that you can just continue to build upon throughout the rest of the game. So he has 9,000. The last Zerg had exactly 9,000 at 15 minutes too. That's pretty funny. So I think the explanation for that is that he did the same thing. And then he set fire to the rain. I don't understand why anyone would set fire to the rain. That doesn't make sense, because it's like it would put itself out. It's just wrong. Oh, anyway, planetary fortresses are totally immune to damage, with 2 exceptions: Ultralisks and infested Terrans. Those are the 2 things you can use to kill planetary fortresses, and he has both. That sucks. Sucks, buddy. Sucks. In the last game, you had a big problem of not having any worker saturation at multiple places at once. So this is 1 oversaturated base, and this is 1 not saturated base and 1 not saturated base. 1 pretty well saturated and pretty well saturated. So, you know, I think that's okay. I think it's okay. You got 70 workers and they're all spread out reasonably. Let's see, the income on 70 workers is supposed to be, like, if you're perfectly efficient, it's supposed to be 40 times 70, which is 2,800, and you have a little less than 2,000. So your income is $800 smaller than it should be if you had good saturation. So that means, I think a lot of that comes from this, but some of it also comes probably from, why didn't it say idle worker if these guys are, okay, 5 idle workers and this oversaturation here. So you can always do that when you're watching a replay. Just multiply the number of workers times 40 and then subtract your income, and that's how bad your saturation is. So right now you've got you're losing $800 a minute to bad saturation, and that's a heck of a lot of money to be losing for no apparent reason. Like I said, once ultras are out, planetary fortresses are no longer safe. And you don't have anything that can fight ultras, so I feel like this game is kind of over, and the Zerg is just being patient about his killing of you. You are going to do some drops to try to spread his army out and prevent him from ending the game, but having a 12 idle worker button, oh my god. 12 idle workers! This is a hard situation to be in because you have an infrastructure designed to produce Marines, and now you're fighting against something where you want to have Banshee, Medevac, Ghost, Marauder. Like, the Marines are almost useless in this scenario. You need some to deal with the Lings, but not really a lot. So yeah, like I said, setting up your infrastructure this way is very timing oriented. You really want to pick that fight before the Ultras come out. And if you don't, now you're stuck with a bunch of reactors when you really want a bunch of tech labs. This is bad. Never have the Ghosts tanking the Ultras. You want the Marines tanking the Ultras while the Ghosts snipe. Now, Ghosts are actually not very good against Ultras in the same way that Banelings are actually not very good against Marauders. But in the same way that enough Banelings can insta-kill enough Marauders, same goes for Ghosts. If you can get a bunch of Ghosts, then you can insta-snipe all these dudes, and that's just crazy effective. Now again, no medevacs. All game you've been piling up missed medevac queues. It's very sad. But you definitely want to emp these dudes and snipe those dudes, and it's really hard to make Ghosts pay for themselves when you don't have extremely high APM and a bunch of medevacs and bunkers to put them near. What you wanted to do was hide him behind these bunkers so that when he was stuck here, you could emp the whole pile in about 3 emps and then just mass snipe. That would have been cool. It's nice to research Cloak because the way Cloak works right now, the initial cost of Cloak is 25 energy, practically nothing. And then, I mean, it costs a lot if you leave it on all the time, but if you just turn it on for a little while, it's quite cool. Look at the energy on these Ghosts as they die. Did you spend all of it before they died? In general, no. And that's not a criticism of you, that's a criticism of Ghosts. This happens to me all the time. That was... Let's see. Ghosts cost $300 each. Ridiculous price. Crazy amount of monies. And for 300 bucks times 16, that's like 3,000, 4,500, and another 300, 4,800. $4,800. That's a shit ton of money. That's a crazy amount. That must be wrong. Yeah, no, it's not wrong. You got $4,800 worth of Ghosts. And do they do $4,800 worth of damage? They kill 1 Ultra, 2 Ultras. They kill 2 Ultras, 3 Ultras. So you'll notice your army wasn't significantly smaller than his when this fight happened. You're only about $1,000 behind on army. And yet the damage done from you compared to from him, he does so much more damage than you do in this fight because Ghosts are ridiculously expensive and extremely hard to use. They need to stand next to tanks and they need to have medevacs floating over them in order to be effective at all, and have bunkers in front of them. And that's just because it takes so long to snipe a million times. That in order to use all your energy on snipe, you really need things like tanks to scare the infestors away. Like, infestors don't go near tanks, so they're not going to fungal your Ghosts. And medevacs make it take like 4 fungals instead of 2 or something to kill Ghosts too. Yeah, so I would recommend never ever making Ghosts to you because you again have like a 46 APM and you're just never going to be able to use Ghosts effectively. Don't make them. If you see a bunch of Marauder infestors are actually armored. See, armored, and Marauders, I mean Ultras are also armored. So make a crap ton of Marauders and tanks. And just a smattering of Blue Flame Hellions and Thors. Marauders, tanks, Blue Flame Hellions, and Thors are all good against these. Because Ultralisks AoE and Thors don't, Thors have a much better just raw statistical, sexiness to them than Ultralisks do. Also, Ultras are melee, so if you can put Thors behind buildings, they just do crazy good against them. Also, Thors get a magic ability that they can use on Ultras that does a ton of damage. Not that I recommend trying to use that either, because again, that's something that takes APM when you really want to be spending your APM stimming and moving your Marauders around. So, yeah. When you see infestors, several Marauders is good. You know, several Marauders is good. You can still win with pure Marine, but I recommend like 2 racks Marauder, because with concussive shells, stim, and just a high base damage of Marauders, you can kill infestors so fast with a couple Marauders. You never want to be going like almost entirely Marauder against just infestor, but once he starts adding ultras, Marauders crazy deadly against ultras and infestors. So yeah, all those tech labs, you transitioned to tech lab really well. I liked that. But instead of making ghosts, make Marauders. If you'd had, when this battle happened, like I said, you had $8,000 and he had $9,000 of army, and he had to push his way through some bunkers, and then he's fighting through this teeny tiny choke, and you've got dudes up here. If this had been Marauders instead of ghosts, it would have done so much better. Because each dude that walks into range is going to get like insta-melted by this chunk of Marauders back here. Yeah, dude. Von Dudington. Obviously the game ended long before this, so none of this matters, but notice how you actually spent as much money on your army as he did on his. That's basically because he knew the game was over and didn't try very hard in the end. But it's also because you tore down his income. He's really mining off one base for a long time. So good job with that, dude. Yeah, and then there's more. I assume you lost or you wouldn't have sent me the replay. I'm not really going to watch it. I'm going to go eat dinner. So, good luck.